Is losing not in your vocabulary? Are you willing to outwork everyone in your next contest but need the right guidance? Drop those bad contest prep strategies and let New York Muscle Radio guide you on your journey to the stage. Whether it's your first show or you're going for that pro card, get a leg up on the competition with individual customized contest prep strategies. Visit NewYorkMuscleRadio.com and click on that coaching tab to get started.
New York's very own muscle building coaches, Anthony Bevilacqua and Pete Kacharian, proudly present to you New York Muscle Radio.
What's up, guys? New York Muscle Radio, episode number 106. It's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, alongside my co-host, Big Pete Kacharian, and welcome to the New York Muscle Radio podcast. If you're a new listener, you're in for a big ride, because today we got on a big guest. We got on Layne Norton. Finally, the great Layne Norton is going to bless our podcast. But Big Pete, what's up, man? How's it going?
Yeah, man, this is going to be a good one, and it's definitely something that's a long time in the making because, you know, we've been trying to make New York Muscle Radio the best podcast for all natural bodybuilders and lifters, and we definitely have to get one of the best on here to make it the best. So we've been waiting to get Layne Norton on, and he is coming on today. So this one is definitely a special one. It only took 100 and something episodes, right?
Yeah, well, when did we first reach out to him? That had to have been over a year ago.
Yeah, I'm exaggerating. It hasn't been since day one that we've been reaching out to him, but it's been a long time.
Close. It's been maybe since day 3.
Yeah, Layne's been he's been busy. We've actually been in touch back and forth for a long time, but we finally got a date for him to come on tonight, and he'll be on this episode.
Yeah, so that's super exciting. I feel like a kid in a candy store. You know when you have like your favorite like person, you know, you want to talk to them, you're all like excited, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Layne's definitely somebody that everybody goes to, you know, as far as natural lifters and even enhanced bodybuilders go to him for kind of the, you know, I guess you could say like the official stance on a certain topic or subject. You know, when anything new comes out, let's ask Layne what he thinks about it. And whatever he says, that must be true, you know, and he's definitely been a resource that's, you know, he's broken a lot of myths and he's debunked a lot of stuff. So I'm hoping we got some new stuff coming on this podcast that not many people have mentioned yet.
Yeah, well, today's podcast is titled The Untold Truth with Layne Norton. So our goal with this podcast was to be able to ask Layne questions that really weren't asked because, you know, I've listened to interviews with Layne and it always seems like the same things are covered, you know. He talks about his, you know, what he learned in school, his dissertation in college. You know, it's always kind of like the same things over and over. So we got some great questions lined up for him because we really want to ask him things that haven't been answered.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's always the goal with this podcast because we don't like to just reiterate stuff over and over again. So I think I haven't really heard him too much on a lot of other podcasts or even do too many videos lately. So I imagine he's been doing a lot more work, and I think he's getting some new science for everybody.
Yeah. So we'll find out today, I guess. So make sure you guys stay tuned for the rest of the podcast to hear that. But so big guy, I had a surprise for you. I was teasing you a little bit before we started recording about a topic that I wanted to bring up here, and I wouldn't let you in on it.
Yeah, you wouldn't let me in on anything. Nothing.
I know. So you ready for this? This is big news,
yeah.
man. This is big news.
Is it big news? I like big news.
So Arnold Schwarzenegger to produce TV series called Pump about his bodybuilding years on Venice Beach.
No way.
Yeah, I swear. I'll link the article in the show notes. If you guys head on over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com and click on that episode tab, we actually changed that, so Pete's no longer responsible for that anymore. So the episodes will be up there now. So when you click on that episode tab, click on Layne Norton's episode, and you could click on the show and read about the whole thing. How cool is that, man?
So is it supposed to be something that it's like documentary style, or is it like they're reenacting it? Someone's going to play him?
I think it's not much. It doesn't say much, but it basically the creator and him have signed up with CBS Television to develop the 1973 set drama series Pump, which Arnold will produce.
That's crazy, man. I wonder who's playing him.
I don't know. I mean, this must have just came out, so I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't hear any of this. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I'm always ahead of the news here, man.
I know. I'm gonna start watching TV again.
Yeah, if you're a new listener, you guys know. Well, you wouldn't know. If you're an old listener, you would know. If you're a new listener, we are Arnold fanatics. I mean, I just happen to think that those guys had it down packed. That was bodybuilding. You know, the guys nowadays are just freaks with muscle.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's the best way to put it.
Unfortunately, that's where the sport ended up. You know, you never know; it could change over time, but I don't think we'll ever be able to duplicate what they had back then.
Yeah, so I'm super excited for that, man. That's gonna be a DVR on the TV.
Oh, definitely. I watched like 3 shows, and that'll be my 4th one, and that's it.
Yeah. This might even surpass Walking Dead.
It might. I don't know. Hopefully, it could be great, or it could turn out to be terrible. But I think if he's producing it, then I think it's gonna come out the right way. You know.
Yeah, when he does things, it's always, to the top. We talked about that in another podcast with him too. Everything he does has to be, the best. So this should be great. Did you ever see the movie that came out with him? It was like a flashback between his bodybuilding days and his political career. It was like him running for the.
Yeah, I think, was that a 30 for 30?
No, it was it was a reenactment of it, and Roland Kickinger played him. And I forgot the other guy who played him.
No, I didn't see that.
It would flash back and forth between like his younger days and like his. I have it. I forgot what it's called. It's a DVD. I think it's called like I don't remember off my head, but yeah, it was pretty cool because they reenacted all the scenes.
I do know it, but I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like Bob Ciccarello played Lou Ferrigno.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was pretty good. It was pretty good because it shows like Arnold, and then like they go through scenes like when he was younger, when his dad died, like what happened. It was pretty cool. It was a good like little movie. I'm surprised you didn't see that.
No, I never saw it, but I saw his 30 for 30, which I thought was a great piece. I don't know if you saw that one.
Yeah, I did. It was so long ago.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said, anything, I wouldn't say anything, Arnold, because I probably wouldn't go watch like The Running Man or something again.
Yeah,
like
we saw it though, so it's not like you can't say it.
Or Total Recall, but like
oh my God, Total Recall was terrible.
But if that comes out, I'll definitely be watching it.
Yeah, so I was like, I have to wait. I was so tempted to send you the link yesterday, but I was like, no, we got to talk about it on the podcast because that's New Line news right there.
Yeah, the last time I got excited for something that Arnold had coming out was when he came out with the new Terminator, and I saw the news that they were going to actually bring back the scenes from the original one.
Did you see it?
Yeah, it was actually, honestly, it was one of the better ones.
I never saw it.
Only because they brought back the original. It was.
Yeah, doesn't he like fight his younger self?
He actually goes back. They bring him back all the way to the first one, so it was really cool.
I never saw it. I have to watch it.
It's worth it. Yeah, it's not like that. After 2, it went all downhill.
The second one was the best.
The second one was very
good.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I like it better than the first. I like them both equally, to be honest with you.
I don't know. I like the second one better, but anyway. Yeah, man. So I've been still getting a lot of emails about the arm experiment that we put out. Basically, how I grew an inch to my arms in 12 weeks. I'm going from 17, just roughly 17, to about 18. Now they're around 18 and a half. I forgot to tell you that. And one thing that I've noticed, which was weird, when I was doing the program, I guess I would flatten out a little bit, and my measurements would kind of go down. And then during the deload weeks, my arms would just balloon up. And that was pretty much how I kept gaining my size. So I measured my arms the other day, and they're the same size. So I'm curious. I'm like, wow, what's this mean now? So maybe now I can't wait to deload because I'm curious if they're going to balloon up again.
Yeah, I mean, that generally happens to me the longer I go on, a longer streak of training, especially if it's higher volume. I definitely tend to flatten out in general. And if you're building muscle at that same time, you might not see it just because you're overall flat. So then once you fill back out, you can see what changes you've actually made. So, if you're walking around flat with the same size muscles, I think when you deload, if you carb up a little bit, you rest. Well, you don't need to carb up anymore, but if you rest a little bit and you fill out, you probably stretch the measuring tape a little further this time.
We'll see if I can hit 19.
Hey man, if it hits 19, then I'm gonna be taking tips from you.
Yeah, exactly. But the arm experiment should be coming out soon. We're trying to make this one really good, so guys, just be on the lookout for that, and you can head on over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com and be on the lookout. But all right, bud, we got a muscle in the minute section coming. We haven't done these in a while. You've been slacking on us.
Yeah, these are backed by popular demand, or more like backed by Anthony's demand. But we'll bring it back for the listeners too as well. If you guys like them, just make sure to let us know you want them in the podcast, and we'll keep doing them.
All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
The game begins in 3, 2, 1.
It's Thursday, July 21st, 2016, and on today's show, new PubMed study concludes that the supplement HMB can promote up to 12 kilograms of lean body mass in as little as 12 weeks. These claims promote that the supplement has more of an anabolic effect
than even illegal anabolic steroids. These outrageous claims caught the attention of some of the industry leaders, such as Layne Norton, who pointed out, unfortunately, this is not the first time for a lab to show evidence claims of something outrageous as this. Yeah, we don't buy that either here at New York Muscle Radio.
All right, so HMB and Layne.
Yeah, I mean,
Fitting for today?
it's very fitting because I think that the new trend, or maybe even the last couple of years, is everyone refers back to studies now. If anybody has a question on, should I train heavy? Should I train light? Should I train to failure? Whatever. Everyone always brings back studies. And every time something new comes out, people are posting them. And, I'm not as big into studies as some other people are, but, you always appreciate something that comes out on paper and says, this is what the evidence shows. You got to respect that and you got to look at it. And Layne pointed out that, even a study published, a PubMed study that came out, he basically just said, look at how this was a false study, and that I don't know if you would call it a false study, but the evidence was basically blown out of proportion to benefit the company that was funding it. So,
well, sometimes that's what I was just going to say. Sometimes at these companies, they kind of swing things in one direction based on who was funding the study, It's kind of crazy. Money rules the fucking world, man.
I know, right?
Money rules the world.
Money changes science.
It's the only thing that can defy physics.
Yeah.
Money changes everything. But so that was a good muscle in the minute, man. A little different than our normal, news, but that was pretty good.
A little change of pace, but it's good to put the information out there.
All right, let's move on to the shout-outs portion. So again, guys, if you want a shout-out from New York Muscle Radio, you can head on over to our website, newyorkmuscleradio.com. You could like us on Facebook, facebook.com/New York Muscle Radio. Or you could like us on Instagram. Send us a comment I'm at AB Fitness and Pete's at Jacked Fitness, JAKKED Fitness. All right, so we're going to shout out. The first shout-out is Crystal Kacharian.
Do you know who Crystal Kacharian is?
I know who Crystal Kacharian is. Do you know who Crystal Kacharian is?
It's a good question. I don't know.
So that's Pete's mom, guys. So Crystal Kacharian liked the podcast. So it only took her a year. She's a little, I think it was the last podcast your brother liked it, right?
It looks like my family took a year to catch on to what I was doing over here. They're like, oh, he has a podcast.
Shout out to Kevin Frassard, Brian Connolly, Pete Burke, Mike Fortson, Michael Ross, and we have one from Instagram. It's at Krister_, and he says greetings from Norway, all the way from Norway. That's not right. That's like where Frozen was, Elsa and Anna.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you don't know about that.
I never saw Frozen.
You never saw Frozen?
Never saw Frozen.
Let it go. My daughter fucking loves that movie. It's always on.
If I had ever seen it, I would probably sing the song with you right now, but I have no idea what you're talking about.
They actually made a meme. You probably have seen the meme. It's like, fuck it all. You never saw that? And it's like the character like singing, but she's cursing about like work. I don't care what they're going to say. It's so funny. It's really funny. All right. Let's move on to the listener question of the day. So again, if you guys have a question you'd like us to answer it, submit it on our website, newyorkmuscleradio.com/listener question. So today's question is, hey, Anthony and Pete, I'm a longtime listener and I've discovered you guys while living in Tokyo. I recently got certified through NASM. What do you recommend the first steps a new trainer should take in the fitness industry? And this is from at Google's Fitness. So this was an Instagram question that we received. So basically, he just became a trainer and he wants to know the first step. So basically, he should go back and listen to our episode that I did on that, how to make, I don't remember what we titled it, how to make 6 figures as a personal trainer. That's, oh my God. But you should go back and listen to that episode because I pretty much lay out step by step what you should be doing as far as making money goes. And I actually answered this question in there. But Pete, why don't you give your take on it since you didn't make that podcast?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is you want to figure out exactly where you want to go in the fitness industry, because that's a pretty broad term. So he's becoming a personal trainer, but he wants to get started in the fitness industry. If your goal is just to work in a commercial gym and make a full-time job out of training people, which I don't recommend you do that. That's not bad part-time work. Then if that's your goal, you want to just jump right into the, get to a gym and, you want to start training people there. But if your goal is to expand beyond that, which is a lot of what you spoke about in that podcast, then you're gonna definitely want to go about it in a different way. I think regardless if your goal is to become an authority in the fitness industry and sell courses to people, even if it's to do online coaching or something through the internet, not even person to person, I still think one of the first steps you should take though is getting people to train in person, because you do learn much more than you think you already know when you start interacting with people face to face and actually training them. So that's honestly...
Wait, Pete, you mean if I do one contest, I'm not automatically qualified to be an online coach?
Man, if you do one contest and you think you're qualified to be an online coach, then you need to just give up now, because you're not going to be successful.
I hate that. Everybody's an online coach. It's ridiculous.
A lot of people seem to be doing a contest just so that they can be an online coach. You know what I mean? It's not like it's like they're going about it in reverse almost. Like me and you, we've been. What year did you do your first contest? I did my first contest in 2009.
Yeah, I was 2007.
Yeah, so and in 2007, did you ever think, okay, I'm going to do this so I could become an online coach? Or did you even think you were going to be an online coach in 2007?
Well, actually, fittingly enough, no, that was at my second show around when I hired Layne. But I hired Layne for my second show. I was like 20, 21. And this is how I got exposed to it, because I saw what he was doing. And I was training people in person at the time, too. And I saw what he was doing. And I was like, I could do that. But I didn't compete to get that qualification.
Right.
I was competing because I wanted to compete. And I wanted to see how, my goal at the time was to become a natural pro. So that's why I was competing. I wasn't competing to become an online trainer. It was like, it's so funny how the trends happen. Like back then, everybody wanted to become a pro. And then now it's like everybody competes to become an online trainer. It's like, oh God, give me a break.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's turned out to be. But, I don't know if many of these people who, there's so many people who build all these followers on Instagram. They do one show and then they're a coach offering services. I don't really know too many of them that actually do make a business out of it or a living doing that. The way the fitness industry is set up, there's so many different ways to make money. And unfortunately, a lot of them are, not really the most ethical way to make money. So I think a lot of these people are making money through all these different avenues. But there's just a trend in it's an oversaturation of people who are, training, knowing how to get yourself in shape and knowing how to be a trainer and work with people are two different things. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I could take somebody who's not even that skilled in getting themselves in shape, but they might be a better trainer because what they do understand, they could actually help somebody with. There's people who know a lot of stuff who can't help anybody, Yep, and that's the truth. But so to answer your question, go back and listen to episode 96 of this podcast, How to Make Six Figures as a Personal Trainer. And I literally go in depth on step 1, step 2, step 3. So follow that podcast. That'll answer that question there. So, he's a long-time listener, he said, but he must have not listened to that episode. I guess he skipped over that one. He saw your face on the image.
Bills.
Yeah.
It's so funny. We made that thumbnail, and I realized after. Well, actually, the bodybuilding nerds pointed that out. It was all on dollar bills. It wasn't even 100 bills. It was like dollar bills. My face.
Yeah, well, you in your spare time, you forgot to tell people you were a stripper.
Exactly, guys. If you want to hire me as a stripper, your personal concierge stripper, you can hit me up at abstripper.com. All right, man.
Yeah, that's his nighttime job.
Yep. Hey, oddly enough, I know a lot of quote unquote bodybuilding models who do stripping on the side.
Hey, man, your physique could get you a long way.
Yeah, apparently. All right, guys, we're going to be right back, and we're going to be on with Layne Norton. So hold on to your socks.
What's up, New York Muscle Radio listeners? It's your co-host, Big Pete Kacharian, and I'm glad you're all listening. Put down that tilapia and asparagus. Learn how to get bigger, stronger, and leaner eating what you want. Pick up a copy of Cracking the Flexible Dieting Code exclusively at NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. But for now, let's get to the show.
Are you a fan of New York Muscle Radio's artwork? Do you want a custom logo design for your personal or professional needs? Then make sure to check out our graphic designer, Mel Ferretto, who not only is an awesome graphic artist, but a pro in advertising, web design, typography, and campaigns. His work resume includes interactive design for the WWE and a graphic designer for Optimal Sports Health Club. Make sure to check out our good friend Mel at Mel, M-E-L, Ferrito, F-I-R-E-T-T-O.com. That's melferrito.com. And again, Mel is New York Muscle Radio approved. Hey guys, it's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, and I just wanted to announce that my brand new personal training facility is now open. I'm currently taking on new clients in the Long Island, New York area. If you're interested in working with the best personal trainer in the business, head on over to abfitnesstrainer.com and sign up for your free consultation. Then you can understand why bodybuilding.com has named me Personal Trainer of the Month. Alright guys, we're back. New York Muscle Radio, episode number 106, and me and my co-host got on the great Layne Norton. Layne, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing all right. How you fellas doing?
Very good, very good. Welcome to New York Muscle Radio. So it's an honor to have you on, and we've been trying for months to get you on, so finally we got you here. So how's everything with you? Everything's good?
Hectic, but that's pretty much the story of my life.
All right, so today's podcast theme is going to be topics that have not been discussed. So let's start off and let's skip the typical, introduction, because most of the people listening to this have heard of you already. So tell our listeners something about yourself that they may not already know by following your bodybuilding and powerlifting career. So let's start off right on the right track here.
Oh, damn. I don't know. I feel like I put most everything out there, to be honest with you. I guess, let's see, what would be something they don't know? Well, people, if they follow me on social media, they know I like to fish and shoot guns. Maybe that I'm a fantasy football. That's one of my favorite things. And that I enjoy reading Jack Reacher novels. I guess that's maybe like some of the ones I can think of that I haven't posted about.
Yeah, those are pretty. I never heard of that, so that's good. But the fishing thing is that's cool. I like that hobby. That's definitely different. I follow you on social media, so I see all the time the different fish that you catch. And living in Florida, you must get some cool stuff down there.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love to. Yeah, I love to fish. It's like one of my favorite pastimes.
Cool. All right, so let's get this started on the right track. So you always seem to be ahead of the curve with everything bodybuilding and fitness related. So for example, back in the day, you were squatting 405 on the front squat when no one was even lifting heavy. And you're a natural bodybuilding sensation. So we know to say you have average genetics. So obviously, you always say that you have average genetics. So obviously it's not that. And we know that you work hard. So other than those things, what do you think is responsible for you being so ahead of the pack?
In terms of progress or in terms of, like, thinking?
I think thinking, because like we said, you were front squatting 405. I never heard of anyone who does that.
I don't know. I think that one of the things that is a little bit different about me is, I don't want to sit here and say I care nothing for what anybody thinks. I mean, of course, I think everybody cares about what other people think to a certain extent, but if I decide that there's something I want to do or something I want to try or that, something is the right thing for me, I don't really give too much thought about what other people think about it, so the way I trained was, something that I researched and also what I had experimented on for me, and I enjoyed it, and regardless of what other people said about it not being the best way to train or kind of poo-pooing it, I was like, well, this is what I think I should be doing, and so I'm going to do it, and I didn't really care what anybody else thought. And then same thing for when I got into powerlifting. Everybody said, oh, it's going to ruin your physique, and you'll never be competitive. And then when I got on stage for my first natural pro shows, everybody kept saying, oh my God, what'd you do for your back and your legs? I was like, well, I was squatting and deadlifting, so not saying that would work the same for everybody else, but I felt that was right, and that's what I did. So I guess I would say, not that I don't listen to other people, but if I decide I'm going to do something, I do it, and I don't let people who are saying it's a bad idea or I I don't let people's negative opinions influence me, I guess, in terms of the direction I'm going to take.
Yeah, and I actually have a follow-up for that because I remember when you first started doing that, at that time, especially all bodybuilders were training the typical bodybuilding split, body parts once a week. Nobody was really focusing on strength training or training more frequently. And like you said, you thought that was how you should be training and you didn't really care what anyone thought. But when nobody else was training that way, and, I guess the common mind might think that, if everybody's doing it this way, then maybe I'm doing it wrong. Did those thoughts ever, enter your mind? Maybe everyone else has it right, or did you just instinctively, or I guess intuitively know I have to change what I'm doing?
I think people find safety in numbers, and so, I for example, the whole cutting water thing. You guys know that for a long time I've said that I think cutting water is not a good way to do things.
You mean Flex Magazine was wrong?
And I provided my rationale for that, and numerous documented people who have competed who've done well without it. Obviously, you can find people who have done well with it, but that doesn't necessarily prove anything. My point, I think, always was, I think you can look a little bit better with it and not have the negative health consequences and not suffer. So, but I would have people tell me, I know what you're saying is right. It makes sense, but I just can't bring myself to do it. And I was like, okay. And they're like, I see everybody else backstage cutting water. I just feel like I need to do it. It's like, all right, well, everybody's driving their car off the Brooklyn Bridge. Would you feel like that was the thing you needed to do? So yeah, I don't want to sound too judgmental because I think that, I think that that's just human nature. And people, the same thing with, I hear this argument all the time and it absolutely drives me batshit crazy. IFYM doesn't work because no pro competitors use it. First off, that's not true. There are pros who use it. The difference is they're not very outspoken about it, okay? Because it's not popular, right? In fact, I know for an absolute fact that a major muscle magazine had somebody who is a very well-known flexible dieter who they were going to have on their cover, and when the person put their diet down for the article, they said, we can't print this. Because it had things like ice cream and whatever. It had other foods in it, like broccoli and rice and standard stuff, but it had ice cream in it because it fit the person's macros and they enjoyed it. And they said, well, we can't have this. And so the person was made to alter their meal plan so they could still be in the magazine. And it's like, that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
Why should that matter? You know what I mean? Like, why should that matter? It's amazing to me that is somehow bad, but then the same magazine will say, yes, you should have a cheat day once a week and not deny yourself these things. And it's like, well, what the fuck is the difference?
Yeah,
Sorry,
exactly.
Can I curse on this?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you guys are from New York. You curse all the time, right?
Yeah, that's how we say hello.
Yeah, what the fuck is the difference, eh?
Yeah, that's how we say hello. Hey, fuck you. What's up?
So, I don't like the that mentality of, oh, well, everybody else does it. Yeah, well, everybody seems to do cardio with a friggin' hoodie on. Somebody explain to me what makes cardio with a hoodie on more fat burning. I still haven't figured it out yet. And somebody can't. So it looks fucking cool. That just say it. That's fine. If that's why you like to do it that way, cool. Do it that way. I got no problems with that. But it's the same thing. Flexible dieting is not considered cool, quote unquote, in the IFBB community, I would say, because it's not looked at as you're not suffering enough for your goal. And listen, I'm all for if you got to suffer for a goal and that's the only way to get there, then hey, you got to suffer that goal. But if you don't have to suffer for it, or if you don't have to suffer unnecessarily or added suffering for no reason, then why the hell would you do that? It's just stupid. So, yeah, I not to get into another diatribe, but I don't. I guess it's another thing is I've always I guess another thing that put me ahead was I always questioned the status quo. If I didn't think there was reasonable evidence for something to be efficacious, I would say, okay, well, why are we doing this? Or why should we do this? Well, this is the way it's always been. Well, why? You know what I mean? And I think people should always question everything, even me. I'm a human being. I'm fallible. I have my faults and I have my biases, so by all means, question me. And I try to do my best to not be over the top when people question me, but usually when they do it, it's very abrasive, shall we say.
Yeah.
So, and then that gets me on the defensive, and then here we go, right? But, so I guess, one, not really caring too much what people think, and then also just always being willing to question the status quo about everything and just not accepting things just because it's what, quote-unquote, everybody does.
All right, I want to roll back a little bit to we touched a little bit on the 405 front squat for 5. Because that was my first real introduction into lifting really heavy. And I remember when you did that, it had to be like 2007, something around that time.
Yeah.
And it was just something that I never heard of, like lifting that heavy before. So I want to kind of go back into your mindset at the time, because I think this pioneered to where the industry is now. What made you say, all right, I think I need to go super, super heavy? Like, where was your mind? How did that all happen,
I had just noticed, for me particularly, my legs didn't really seem to respond to much else other than going heavy, and I just liked lifting heavy. It was fun. I mean, anybody who says they don't like lifting heavy, either they can't do it without pain or they're not good at it. If you're good at it and you're pain free lifting heavy, that shit's fun. I don't care what anybody says. So, anyways, that was it. Nothing else. I just really enjoyed it, and that's all I can think of, to be honest with you. I really enjoyed it, and it seemed to work well for me, so I kept doing it.
I'm curious, at that time, did you know anybody personally who was putting up that kind of number on something like a front squat?
I mean, obviously you had IFBB pros who could do that sort of stuff.
But they don't count.
Right.
They don't have ice cream.
There were some pretty strong natural guys. Kurt Widener was really, really strong. I don't know if he still posts videos, but I remember seeing him deadlift like 585 for 10 and being like, holy crap. Duke Bell was really strong too. He posted a video of him squatting 495 for 10. Those two guys I could think of, but I couldn't really think of much else.
Yeah, because I think it kind of set the standard for natural bodybuilders to really focus on getting stronger, because, I can speak for myself, and I'm sure a lot of other people agree that at that time, you kind of had this, I guess people always tend to set some type of limit on what's achievable naturally.
Of course.
You might think that the limit is way less than something like squatting 405 front squat, for a natural lifter. So I really think that kind of broke a barrier. And it seems like that was just the start of it for you, honestly. And it seemed like that kind of led, the path for everybody to start breaking all these records, because even powerlifting has grown so much in the natural organizations in the last few years even.
Yeah, I'm glad you made that leap so I don't have to sound arrogant making it.
No, definitely.
No, I think what I did was I showed people you could kind of do both and do both well. And if you wanted to do both, you could, and you didn't have to choose. And I think a lot of people saw how much fun I had with powerlifting and were like, oh, that'd be cool to try. That you can keep your aesthetics and still lift heavy. So, and to be honest, like God, if I inject me with true serum, I'm probably going to say that I like powerlifting better. It's just, there's something about having your outcome in your own hands, as opposed to, you can say, well, they could call you for depth on squat or something like that. And of course that's true, but something to say about coming down to the last deadlift. And, if you got a chance to win, it just, it's all on you, whether you do it or not, as opposed to, oh, well, we didn't like your symmetry and how you looked here in XYZ, right? Something completely subjective. So, and as far as the natural limit, I get that a lot. And I think what people need to realize, because I think what people really want is for somebody to be able to say, okay, if you go up to this line, everything before this line is natural, and anything after this line is not natural. And that is completely idiotic. I think all of us know a guy who's on a bunch of juice who looks like shit, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about that before, Pete.
Yeah, and there are some, listen, and that's not to, like, they may be hard workers. They just may have real crappy genetics. That exists.
No, come on, man. The majority of the time when people are on a boatload of stuff and they don't look like they lift is because they barely do.
Yeah, that's true too. But I mean, even Ron Harris talked about it. Like Ron Harris, he writes a lot of articles for magazines.
I haven't heard that name in years.
Yeah, I love Ron. He's always a really cool guy. And Ron said, Ron was a successful natural bodybuilder, and then he decided to cross over. And he was like, yeah, I kept thinking that I was just going to blow up, and I got a little bigger, a little stronger, and that was it. and it didn't seem to go up much, no matter how much he did. So, I think that people need to realize that people respond differently to drugs, people respond differently to training, and there is no line. There's a very gray area. I mean, certainly you start getting to a point where you go, oh man, that's hard to believe. There's people out there like that. But I think all of us know people who don't really eat well, who don't track their nutrition, who train haphazardly, and they look great, right? And so who don't give a shit about it.
Right. Yeah. I know plenty of them.
Yeah, exactly. So people, they gotta be on drugs. Like Kai Green. Kai Green's a great example. People are like, oh well, they see pictures of when he was younger in the WNBF when he won WNBF Worlds at age 18, which is insane. And people go, oh well, he was natural then. Kai Green was living on the street, literally could not afford anything. Where the hell did he get money for steroids? You know what I mean? I've talked to people who are kind of in the know about Kai's story, and they said that he was natural. He won his IPB Pro Card natural, and he competed in the IPB natural. And if people don't remember this, Kai for years was finishing dead last in shows, for probably 3-4 years, and then he won a best poser at a show. This is what I understand. I don't want to misrepresent or slander Kai. I don't think any of this stuff is slanderous, but this is just what I have heard. And so if there's any of this information is incorrect, then my apologies to Kai. But he won best poser in a show, and he took that money and invested into what it would take to go to the next level. And the next show he got second. He made a huge jump. And then he won the New York Pro, and then he won the Arnold. He started because he kept reinvesting this stuff, and you saw him just, blow up. And it was so I would believe that he was natural before. You know what I mean? Because you see the difference. And people don't want to believe that. But like I said, there are some people out there who are just freaks. There are people who walk around who are 7'6", and they're born that way. They're just freak of freaks. Is it hard to believe? Yeah, of course. But that doesn't mean it's not true. And so I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. Now, are there people out there who cheat? Absolutely. No question about it. And it's disgusting that it happens. But I think that number is a lot less than people realize. I've been involved for natural bodybuilding for, over a decade, and powerlifting for half a decade. And, the number of people who cheat, in my opinion, is pretty darn small. There's just not the incentive to do it.
Yeah. All right. So we mentioned a little bit about size. So let's go back to that in natural bodybuilding. So let's talk about the size you gained. And I never heard this before, so this is a good question. So according to the bodybuilding.com video series, you were 230 pounds in the off season and 195 pounds in contest during your bodybuilding career. And we know that that's huge for a natural bodybuilder, especially for one that has a history of being skinny. So again, hard work and consistency aside, what do you attribute those results to?
Well, they got to qualify that because, the guys the warriors who scream that I can't possibly be natural because I was bigger than Frank Zane. Okay, look at pictures of Frank Zane. Look at pictures of Frank Zane and look at me. All right? I mean, yeah, I got a good physique, but I wasn't Frank Zane. You know what I mean? So I think the important thing to keep in mind is I have a very large bone structure. My waist at contest is 32 1/4 inches. It's not, I do not have a small waist. That's why I'm a good powerlifter. It's one of the reasons I'm a good powerlifter. Now, so I can carry, in my bone density scans, when I get bone density scans come back, they come back at the top, almost off the physiological range. My bones are very dense. So I have a big bone structure, large bones. So you have to keep in mind when you're taking calipers, and you come back and let's say you're 185 pounds of lean body mass, right? Lean body mass is not the same thing as muscle. Lean body mass is everything that's not fat, right? So that includes bone, skin, hair, water, organ weights, all that kind of stuff. So you're actually, people think that that's pure muscle, you know, and they'll compare it to a guy like Zane. They say, well, at the same height, Zane had 180 pounds of muscle. So this guy has 5 more pounds. How is that possible? Well, Frank Zane had a 27-inch waist or a 28-inch waist, right? His waist was literally 4 inches smaller than mine. His bone structure was tiny. So he actually had more actual muscle tissue weight, most likely. Okay, I can't say it for sure. I haven't seen a bone density scan. But, yeah, so, yes, I was big at contests. But you look at a guy like Doug Miller. Doug Miller's about the same height as me. And Doug's like 192. And Doug, if you put him next to me, Doug will make me look small. You know what I mean? So I think people using this height-weight comparison and body fat to try and determine what's natural or what's impressive, I think height weight is fine, but bodybuilding is not based on your height, weight, and body fat percentage. Judges never get on stage with calipers. It's based on how you look. I wish it was based on impressiveness from stats for natural bodybuilding, because then I might do better. So, again, you can have those stats, and those stats are great, but same goes in the IFBB. People have stats that don't win Olympias. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was a really good answer, because I think a lot of people get caught up in the numbers, and that was a great way to clarify it. And that was a really good answer, man. Props to you. I didn't think I was going to get that kind of an answer. That was a good answer.
Well, usually, I could have this kind of discourse with somebody if they're a reasonable human being, but usually when I'm talking about this stuff, it's somebody screaming at me, telling me how I'm a fucking liar and I couldn't possibly be natural. And I'm like, really? Because I've added like 3 pounds of lean body mass in like the last 8 years. So, man, if I'm on some stuff, I better find a new supplier.
All right, so for any natural bodybuilder who has been in this game for a long time, they know the struggle of hitting plateaus in size and strength. Obviously, you can maximize progress from hard work, but as a natural, it's possible even year to year to see little to no progress, especially at the advanced stages. And you seem to always been able to maximize your potential year after year, even if that's as little as 2 to 3 pounds of muscle, and with the strength accordingly. How do you still manage to maximize your progress this far into your career?
Well, I think a big thing is staying healthy, and I have, even though I've been recently dealing with some injuries that I've been very public about them, because I think it can help people when you talk about it. I think that for the most part I was pretty darn injury free. The last injury before that was my pec tear, and that was what would that be? 8 years ago, right? So. I think that people, how do I want to put this? I think that consistency is a huge thing. And people always ask, why am I not making progress like this guy or that guy? What secrets he got? I don't have any secrets. My secret is, in the last decade, the longest I ever took off from training was like 5 days. And that was because I was had the flu, go do anything for 10 years consistently, at least 5 days a week, and tell me if you still suck at it. You know what I mean? Most people don't make progress because they get injured, they're out of the gym, or they lose motivation and they stop training hard, or they just stop training in general. Whereas if they were just super consistent, those would come. Now, obviously, a science-based program can be really helpful. And that can take you to the next level, and I've had those opportunities. But consistency is the biggest thing by far.
Yeah, I had a question and I kind of answered it, but I want to know exactly at this point, would you say that, obviously, like you just said, a science-based program would definitely help you, but let's say somebody gets to the advanced stage and they really just have a passion for training and they still train just as hard as they did when they started. If they really get close to their genetic limit where, muscle gain starts to slow down, would you say that a science-based program would be pretty much required to continue progress? Or could somebody just, as long as they're continuously training hard, they're training with intensity, consistency, they're eating right, do you think they'll still be able to maximize their progress, or at least make any at that point? Or do you think at that point, you would have to have it so fine-tuned?
I think the further up you go, in terms of closer to your limit, the more meticulous you're going to have to be to make progress.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so, you know, when you first start, just train. Like, don't even worry about periodization. You're going to make gains no matter what, you know. But yeah, as you get further and further and further, to even make incremental progress, you're going to have to really be meticulous. So yeah, that's it's just kind of sucks, but that's how it is.
So we know that you're a pioneer in gaining muscle and strength. You were really one of the first people to advocate hitting body parts multiple times a week. You were one of the first people to stress macro counting, as we went over. You also went on to take over powerlifting. So we know you always kind of have something up your sleeve. So the question is, what's next? Are you researching some new ways to optimize training or nutrition? What's next for Layne?
You know, I've got really right now, trying to, I've always got multiple things going on, but I'm really trying to put a lot of work into, you know, my supplement business, and then Avatar, my custom macronutrient business, as well as my website for information. And I'm also, you know, trying to work to, I think I got away from my base a little bit, which was coaching. I think for a while there, I kind of got so distracted by a lot of things that to be honest, my coaching suffered a little bit. And I'm trying to, well, I'm a great marketer, aren't I? Hire me. My coaching suffered last year, but hey, but yeah, unfortunately, I'm honest to a fault, I guess.
Layne, you just have to go do one contest. You're automatically recertified as a coach, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't know that?
Yeah, exactly. So I think recommitting myself to that and really focusing on doing a better job of that, and really being a little more meticulous with that, because I think for a while there, I would have been, maybe I still am, but people would consider me like one of the top or the top coach in the industry. And so I want to kind of reestablish that as the case. So yeah, and I've also, like, one of my passions is kind of helping people who want to make it in the fitness industry, who have a passion for it, helping them. And I've actually thought about, like, running seminars for coaches, like, you know, how to get into it, what education can help you. Less about, like, the science behind it, but more about, like, the practical aspects of running a business. Just because I've, you know, had a lot of experience with it. So, yeah, those are all the kind of things that are on the horizon. And obviously I have competitive aspirations as well in powerlifting, possibly bodybuilding again one day. But yeah, for now I'm just kind of grinding away, rehabbing, and really pouring myself into my work.
So based on the amount of time you've been training and your level of development at this stage, if you were to go back to focusing on bodybuilding, how much more muscle do you think you can actually add to your frame?
Probably not much, to be honest with you. I'm going to go in and really try to putting on as much muscle as possible, but that's not, you know, as much muscle as possible. Maybe 1 more pound for me, you know. And it's impossible to know. But I think what I can do, you look at Brian Whitaker, I think he's a good example. So his stage weight really hasn't changed in like the last 7 or 8 years, but he has looked better at every show. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I think that even if your weight doesn't change and you're not registering more lean body mass, your look can get better. And I don't really have a scientific explanation for that, but yeah, I think that is something that you can focus on.
I actually, since you brought up Brian Whitaker, I have a question about him, because I always found this fascinating about him. Like you said, he competes every year, and he just, you know, he improves his physique over time. And, you know, everybody who's competed knows how much it takes out of you from a contest prep, then the recovery period after, just to get back to normal. And I always found it, you know, very, very interesting how some of these competitors manage to do it year after year. You know, maybe even 2 years in a row is tough, but like you said, he's doing it multiple times over and over again. You know, what do you think really what do you think is the reason that they're able to continuously do that and still improve, at least for natural bodybuilders, because as a natural, especially with the hormone fluctuations and everything like that through the serious deficit in calories and how much you get depleted through prep, I believe you also agree that you don't necessarily think it's optimal to consistently compete year after year.
Definitely not. And I think that's one thing Brian's really good about is he takes time off. And I think that makes a huge difference. A huge difference. And people don't do it enough. They get so focused on, this next show. And they really, like I see it all the time, people who can't be intense or can't stay focused if they don't have a show staring right in front of them. And it's like, you know what? If you want to be a really good bodybuilder, you're going to have to take a long off season at some points, especially natural, to build. And you better find a way to stay focused. I think what's good about Brian is he's consistent, he's focused no matter when it is, whether it's off season, in season, no matter what. And he also is willing to learn new things. He had won 3 world championships, the lightweight division, when he came to the first camp I ever put on, and he met Mike Zordos, and Mike kind of blew his mind on training, and he had Mike start training him. This would be a guy who'd be easy to say, hey, you know what? I've already won 3 world championships. I know what I'm doing. I don't need anybody to help me. And he was already willing to consider Mike's, point of view that was totally different. And same thing with me. Like I don't want to say I coached him. I think that's not a fair. I guess I would say I advised him last year when he won the Yorton as well as WNBF Worlds, which, in my opinion, he had the greatest season of any natural bodybuilder of all time because nobody's ever won both of those in the same year. That's incredible. And he's willing to try new things. He's willing to not get stuck in his ways, even though he's been so successful. And I think that, along with the consistency and hard work, and obviously he has certain genetic gifts in terms of his aesthetics and conditioning, but he just has. I think a lot of people would have won the 5. His goal was to win the overall, and he won 5 lightweight world titles and not an overall. And I think a lot of people would have just said, "Screw it." You know what I mean? They just said, "I did damn good. I'm done." And he kept after it. And that is the heart of a champion right there.
Yep. He also mentioned, we had him on the podcast as well. He also mentioned he doesn't really take a long time to reverse diet. Basically, he just kind of takes a couple weeks and then he's back up to his off season kind of right away. So I think that helps him in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like reverse dieting can be useful if your goal is to, there's no one right or wrong way to reverse diet. I tell people this all the time, and people have watched my videos and kind of get it wrong. But if you want to stay lean and minimize fat regain, then you're going to have to go slow and do a pretty slow reverse diet. Now, that also means that it's going to be longer for you to regain your muscle that you lost during your diet, right? But it depends on your goals. Now, if somebody says, hey, I don't give a damn about fat gain, I want to get as much muscle back as possible, well, then let's take you up to your predicted maintenance. Let's take you up pretty quickly back to off-season calorie levels. There's nothing wrong with that. I would say that it's probably, and I've tracked Brian's progress. He doesn't just shoot back up. He probably gets there over, I would say, a 10-week period, which is reasonable, and 10 to 12-week period. And you just don't want to put it all on in 4 weeks because now you're putting on unnecessary amounts of fat and you're just going to have to strip those down later, Mm-hmm. So, and then you can lose fat in that process, or you can lose muscle in that process. So I think that's something to consider. And I think a lot of people don't consider that, but I think that, Brian is doing a nice moderation of both of those. He's not staying too lean, but he's not putting on excess of fat either.
Mm-hmm. So on top of being a natural bodybuilder and a powerlifter, you also have your PhD. So we know that you've done a lot of research in the lab. So I want to shift a little bit away from training and nutrition quick, and I want to talk about the lab. So what was the most surprising information you've discovered through your research that you haven't really spoken much about, aside from your, the big study that you obviously put out?
Man.
I told you we wanted to make it tough, man.
I think I've talked about most of it. I know you guys are fishing for something new. But I think, I guess when I got there, I really was big on, more, frequent meals. And after I got some research data back, actually out of my first experiment, I was looking at it, I'm like, well, if this is right, I very well really can't validate eating 8 meals a day. It just didn't make sense based on the data.
Were you doing that at the time?
What's that?
Were you doing that at the time?
Yeah, I was. And so I was like, okay, well, let's try 4 or 5 meals a day.
Wait, let's go back a second. 8 meals a day. What was that? That's like every hour. What was that?
Yeah.
Every 2 hours, pretty much, right?
Hours, yeah. I mean, I was yeah, I mean, but that was how a lot of people ate. It was 6 to 8 meals a day, and I started, looking at the data, looking at what we got, and I was like, well, it just doesn't make sense to do this, so I changed it, and it seemed to work pretty well.
I also remember that at one point, I don't know, maybe you still do it. You used to do the meal in the middle of the night. Are you still doing that, or did you find any research to say that that's optimal or not necessarily?
Wow, that's a throwback,
a
Pete.
huge difference with it. I think so. What I do is I tell people is if you want to do that, what I would recommend is if you wake up on your own, by all means, if you want to eat something, right? And people say, well, how do I account for that in my macros? Well, you can either you can leave extra macros at the end of the day, and then if you don't eat in the middle of the night, you can roll them over to the next day, or you can take them from the next day and just eat less the next day, right? So you can do it either way. But I think that... Sorry, my phone's on vibrate and I can hear it squeaking. I think that I would not recommend... How do I say this? I would not recommend waking yourself up. I do think that that uninterrupted sleep is important. So I would say don't wake yourself up to do it. But if you happen to wake up, then that's fine.
So that was a big shocker to you then, the whole, you went into it eating 8 meals a day and then you ended up leaving with 3. So that must have made things a lot more convenient for you, because eating 8 times throughout the day, that's got to be tough to keep up with, besides, washing all the dishes and that whole aspect of it as well.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, that is the actual benefit. Now you don't have to friggin', you don't have to, take food with you anytime you go, anytime you even leave the house. You know what I mean? You have the option to basically wait till you get back, because I remember even when I'd have to go out for a short bit, I'm like, well, better take food because, I don't know if I'm out more than an hour, I'm probably going to need to eat again. It was just such a huge, colossal pain in the ass, you know what I mean? So yeah, that did make a big difference.
All right, let's talk. I want to touch about supplements, because I never really hear you discuss too much. I mean, I know the whole glutamine thing a couple years back was a whole big thing with you, so we're not even going to touch on that. So let's talk about branched chain amino acids. We know that you recommended doing that in between meals, but there have been some people who say that branched chain amino acids, when you take them, even on an empty stomach, they spike insulin, and they noticed that they would lose more. They would lose more weight when taking them out. So these same people also recommend essential amino acids over branched chain amino acids. So what are your thoughts?
So branched chains have calories, but essentials don't. So what I would say to them is, one, the insulin response to BCAAs is a transient, short, small response. Because here's the deal. If you spike insulin and there's no concurrent increase in blood glucose, you will get hypoglycemic. because insulin disposes of glucose. So if you just have the same amount of glucose floating around your bloodstream and then you spike insulin, you would go hypoglycemic. So hey guys, when you take BCAAs, do you go hypoglycemic?
No.
Okay, well then there you go.
So these people have also said, and I've heard this from multiple sources. I'm just saying but I heard it a couple of times that they've noticed that when they take the branched chain amino acids out, that they end up losing more weight after that. I mean, I don't know what sense that was said in, but that's majority of what I said, of what they say.
Yeah, I would say that the data does not support that.
All right, good.
Yeah, in my personal experience, I've never had that problem. Like I've always been able to drop weight with BCAAs. It's never been something that I've had to remove to continue fat loss. So
I mean, unless you're looking at somebody who's eating, who's taking, let's say, like 30 grams of BCAAs a day, which do have calories, 4 grams per gram, or 4 calories per gram.
So do essential amino acids, though, right?
Agreed.
So even if they switched it out, it would still be the same thing in the end.
Exactly. They are going off of the insulin-driven fat loss model, which is insulin is everything and nothing else matters, which has been shown time and time again to not be true. Insulin does matter in that if you have in a caloric surplus with excessive insulin, it can cause fat gain. But if you are matching calories, there's just no evidence that something like BCAAs would make that difference. Or even, look at the carbohydrates. The data on sugar is very clear. There's multiple studies showing that if you equate calories and you have more sugar or less sugar, it does not matter for fat loss. It doesn't. And people want to argue with me about this, and the studies are just enormously clear on this fact. And every time I've done this on Twitter before, people want to argue with me, and I'll say, I will give you a year's supply of and this goes for any of your listeners, I'll give you a year's supply of my supplement line if you can show me one study where calories and protein are equated and sugar intake made a difference in fat loss. Good luck.
I don't know. I feel like sometimes people just end up saying things just to kind of stir the pot a little bit. I mean, the media does it to obviously spin things around and get you, like clickbait. We've talked about that before, me and Pete.
Oh, of course.
But it's so funny how things end up, like everybody before I heard of you, it was always like the food you ate was so important. If you want to gain muscle, you have to eat chicken, brown rice, all that.
Yeah.
Then you came around and it was like, oh, no, you got to only worry about your macros. And that seems to be the easiest way to go about it. But it's not the sexiest way to sell things,
Oh, no, it's not sexy at all. Listen, I wanted to find magic foods when I went to graduate school. Like, if I did that, I could have made a hell of a lot more money, because that's way sexier than saying, well, you just got to work really hard and be consistent for a long period of time and, track your protein, carbs, and fats. And because people go, well, why do I need you for that? You know what I mean? Like, and so whereas if you convince people that there's magic foods and you have some kind of magic formula, they say, ooh, tell me more, Mr. Guru, So, I think that's that when you are – listen, I'm not against making money. I've made plenty of money in my life, but I'm against making money, doing it super unethically and misleading people.
We've had some clients come to us that came from other coaches that pretty much – we had a gal, for instance, she was pretty much eating – the same meal plan that was given to a guy, and you could totally tell. It's like, I don't understand how this happens over and over and over. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, it's a great business model. If you just want to make, you look good, you convince people that you know how to make them look like you, and you give them a meal plan, and probably 40 to 50% of them do really well on it because 40, 50% of them are like you and similar metabolism, whatnot. And then the rest of them do terribly, and you don't talk about those clients, and it doesn't matter because you didn't spend more than 5 minutes making it up because all you did was Control C and then Control V and copy paste it, and so it didn't cost you anything. So, and then when they complain, you just claim that they were, just a really high maintenance client and this and that. So yeah, it works great for them.
Crazy. Control V and Control C, that they were making fun of the whole thing that happened yesterday at the Republican National Convention with his wife. That's all. I'm seeing all those memes today on Facebook, so it made me laugh. When you just said control V,
To be
control V.
fair, somebody just posted a speech of Obama, who pretty much word for word copied a guy like almost 10 years ago. So I think that, I think all politicians are probably guilty at some point or another of that sort of thing.
All right. So speaking of scams, I want to touch a little bit on the gray area subs because I haven't heard your opinion on this. So let's talk a little bit about SARMs. So it seems to be the biggest thing in the industry, and they're marketed as everything positive from steroids, but without the side effects. So Layne Norton's thoughts on SARMs.
Yeah, I really haven't looked too much into them. My thoughts are, if they were that great, then everybody would be using them. I think, from what I understand of them, is you're modifying the androgen receptor, which in theory could produce better results, but I've yet to see any research data showing actual changes in muscles with those. And I think the other thing to realize is, just in general, and I don't want to generalize too much because every compound is different, but I have yet to see anything where you get something for nothing. You know what I mean? So my inclination, not having really researched really far into these things, would be to say that you may get some benefits, but I think also it's likely that there'll be some side effects as well, especially if they're effective. Now, would it be as much as a comparable amount of steroids? I don't know. And so that would be interesting. But, I just, like I said, I haven't really looked into them enough to really feel comfortable, authoritatively commenting on them.
All right, so everybody wants to be a little bit ahead of the curve, but it's so hard to find actually good quality information. I mean, we covered a lot of stuff here that obviously we've debunked a lot in here too. How do you actually go about researching topics in training and nutrition? So sometimes you can't even trust like a PubMed study, like the one that you posted the other day about HMB. So how do you go about finding actual relevant information?
So I think that, and first of all, that's just, just to be fair, that's just me looking at that study and saying, you know what, I don't believe it. But that doesn't mean there aren't other people who are experts who would say, it's totally doable. But I look at that and I go, no fucking way. So I think one of the things that's important is to look at studies, but also have people that, at a certain point, I do say question everybody. But at a certain point, you do kind of have to trust some people, right? And so I think what you should do is you should follow people who continuously provide evidence for claims, and you don't always have to agree with them, and you're probably not always going to agree with them. But if you look at, like, for example, when myself and Alan Aragon disagree on something, it's never a, fuck you, Alan, you're an asshole. It's, okay, we disagree. All right, I see your point, you see mine, but we're going to disagree, and that's fine. And I think that's what you want to look at. And I always tell people, the people to follow are people who aren't saying best, worst, always, never, that sort of, those are guru terms, I would recommend people who are saying, well, maybe, but in this situation or these circumstances, right? Like things that they're putting everything in context and qualifying it. That's usually the mark of an expert. It's like, if I went to somebody who is a financial advisor, right, or had their PhD in finance, and I said, hey, what's the best investment? What should I use? What are they going to say? They're going to say, oh, get this mutual fund. No, they're not. They're going to be like, well, that depends on a lot of factors, right? And so that's the mark of an expert. They're not just going to sell you something right away. They're going to gather information, they're going to get context, and then they're going to make a decision about what might be best for your particular situation.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that PubMed is an actual good, so if someone was listening to this, maybe a younger kid, and they wanted to kind of do what you do and kind of, be ahead of the pack, can they go to a site like PubMed and actually, is that a more reliable source than Google?
Yeah, it's more reliable. I mean, but obviously you're going to have people who take studies out of context. You know what I mean? I think I think PubMed is an overall good thing. It allows everybody access to research data. Unfortunately, it can also be a bad thing. It's like, it's like giving a little. It's not like this, but just a comparable thing. So, like, you put a knife or a gun in the hand of a mature adult, and it's a tool, right? You put a knife or a gun in the hand of a 3-year-old, and it is a bad deal, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of the same deal. You put that information in the hands of people who are educated and knowledgeable enough to access it and properly placed it in context, and it's a good thing. You put it in people who don't understand things, and it can be misinterpreted and misrepresented, and suddenly it's a bad thing, right? So an example of that was I just had somebody today who was saying, well, Layne, they're debating me on IFIM. I said, well, what about...
That still goes on.
What's that?
That still goes on.
Yeah. What about trans fats? I said, okay, well, what about them? Well, the body just can't process them. I said, well, what do you mean? What do you define as process? Like, what does that actually mean? Because that's one of those guru terms. That's a catch-all. I'm like, what do you actually mean? Like, well, you can't digest it. I'm like, okay, well, let's think about this for a second, because they were saying it affects body composition. If you couldn't digest it, that means you're not getting the energy from it. That's less ATP. That would make it easier to lose fat, not harder. So let's try again next round, regardless of what it may be for health, reasons. They said, well, I just have a hard time believing it that you can digest it and get the nutrients from it, like other things. I said, well, I don't really care if you have a hard time believing it. This is what it is, And they said, well, how would you digest it? I'm like, well, the same way you digest any other fat. So that person, and I'm not trying to pick on this person, they train people, but anybody who would have kind of a basic understanding of digestive physiology would know these things, right? And so this person read something somewhere or interpreted something in some way that made them think that the trans fats could not be digested, which is not true. And so they are probably parlaying that information to their clients and conveying it to them, and giving them misinformation. And so I think that again, like, that information in the hands of a person who can properly assess it and put it in context and critique it correctly is very, very good. And I think sometimes in the hands of people who may not have the same understanding, it can be dangerous. So, but overall, I think PubMed is a good thing. I just, what bothers me is the PubMed warriors who, who have never actually done any research of their own. And like for me, the reverse dieting thing, it kind of drove me nuts because, if anybody, I feel like and I never oversold it. I never said this is a magic solution, this and that. I said, hey, if you're in this situation and this is your goal and these are the parameters, this might help you. Okay. I feel like if anybody could be allowed to take some liberties and say, hey, I think maybe this, based on my experience, it would be somebody who's done 10 years of biochemistry and nutritional science, right? And also coached over 1,000 people. I think but the first thing was, well, there's no PubMed study on reverse dieting. Okay, well, there was no PubMed study. I don't want to compare myself to Newton because it's not the same thing, but there was no PubMed study when the apple fell from the tree and Newton saw it and thought about gravity. Okay, he had an original thought in his brain, right? So you're not always going to have a PubMed study to reference, and that's okay. If you have direct contradicting evidence, that's a different thing. So anyways, I think that's where it becomes a problematic, but overall, I think it's a good thing.
All right, Layne. So the reason why we really asked you to come on this podcast was we pulled our audience, and you were one of the main people who they asked to come on. So I pulled a couple of their questions together. So we're going to answer this in rapid fire question because we're a little bit over time, but I want to answer our fan questions here. So I got 5 questions, so answer them to the best of your ability, I guess as fast as possible. So first, question number 1 from Kosher Gains. He said, we know that distributing protein over multiple meals is optimal. What about the distribution of fat and fiber? Is it ideal to spread that out over the course of the day? And what is the most amount of fat you will aim to consume per meal?
We don't know. that has not been assessed. My gut instinct would be like spreading out fiber may be helpful for GI function. I'm not sure spreading out fat or there needs to be a fat limit in any one meal. Yeah, that's just my gut instinct.
So, I mean, like, I just want to, talk a little bit about that quick. So, like, we know that if you have 100 grams of protein in a meal, that's not really good. But if you have 100 grams of fat, that's okay?
Well, you have to keep in mind what your overall intake is going to be, right? So if somebody is eating 100 grams of fat a day, and they decide to have 80 grams of one meal, they're going to store a lot of that fat as body fat, right? Mm-hmm. But that also means they're only getting 20 grams the rest of the day. And so at those other meals, they're going to burn more fat because they're having less fat. And so the overall balance will likely be zero. Okay. Or likely not be different. Now, could I be wrong? Maybe. But we don't have data on that. That's never been assessed. So yeah, I don't know.
All right, next question. And this is from Tom Merck. He says, should you focus on continuously trying to improve your mobility while getting stronger, or should you just stick to a standard warm-up routine before lifting heavy?
I think you should assess weaknesses in your mobility and work on those. But there is data to suggest that if you're hypermobile, that it's actually more likely to get injured as well. So I think a modest amount of mobility and warm-up work, and then focus on lifting.
All right, next question. What was the biggest mistake / best decision you have ever made in your career thus far by Manspar?
Biggest mistake.
And the best decision, so on each end.
So biggest mistake was, I don't want to get too specific, but I associated with a person a few years ago who I trusted for a while, and referred a lot of people to that individual's business, I guess, and came to find out that the person was very, very unethical. And as soon as I found that out, I ceased my relationship with that individual. But I felt very bad because I referred many people to that person over time, and they had bad experiences. So it was, that was probably my biggest mistake.
And the best decision?
Best decision.
In your career.
My
so
career.
To narrow that down.
Shit. Man. I guess it'd be hard to dispute starting to post on the bodybuilding.com forums, Started that back in 2001, and look where it led me. I don't think I end up where I am today if it's not for that.
All right, next question. What is the biggest fundamental change over the years that Layne has seen regarding nutritional science for bodybuilding and physique athletes? By C. Boletta 66.
I think that just the demand actually for evidence now. I see it quite a bit. People, it used to be if you were the jack dude, you could kind of say whatever you want and people would just believe you. And now people go, wait a minute. Layne said this, or somebody else said this, right? Like, why are you saying that? Like, there's no evidence for that. So I think that's very new, like the kind of people just wanting somebody to validate what they say.
And dude, I can totally relate to that, because when I first started, I remember someone telling me you have to eat sweet potatoes, and I was always asking why. What about the sweet potato that makes it so special? And they just couldn't give me an answer, and that bothered me so much until I found out about all the research that you were doing and the counting the macros and everything like that. It was just so much more eye-opening when that happened. It made things so much more easier, because when I started and when Pete started as well, we were talking about this too. I mean, I'm sure when you started too, it was so confusing.
Oh yeah, of course, and I had many of the same questions you did, and that's why I went to graduate school, because some of this shit just didn't make sense, you know what I mean? And I think I think the heart of any one scientist is the willing to question even the most basic beliefs that people hold true or even dogmas, And I think that's the true heart of a scientist, is just questioning anything. Being willing to question that. So, I think I think that makes a big difference.
All right, our last question. I don't want to sound like a dumbass reading this question, but I don't even understand it. So this guy must be a scientist or something. So good luck to you, Layne, before I even ask you this question. But So
right.
how does blood flow restriction training affect the sliding filament action and the myoleading sheath integrity? From Daniel. So good luck, bud. I don't even know what that means. I'm a dumb New Yorker. I don't know.
No. I feel like it doesn't make sense actually. So
All right, good. That makes me feel a lot better.
I could be wrong, but
when I read that, I was like, what?
I say it one more time.
How does blood flow restriction training affect the sliding filament action and the myoleading, maybe I'm saying that wrong, sheath integrity?
The sheath it'd be no different than regular lifting. But the sliding mouth. I mean, that's, your cross bridging that occurs between actin and myosin. I mean, that's just what's required to move muscle. So I'm not. I guess maybe they can kind of elaborate later, but to me that question didn't really make that much sense.
All right.
They might have been
Maybe
just
I'm-
trying to
maybe
stump him.
Maybe I'm dumb like you guys, right? I don't know.
I don't know. I got that question. I'm like, Pete, should we ask him this? I don't even know what it fucking means. I don't want to sound like an asshole on the podcast. He's like,
It's all
ask
right.
him. I'm
Stop
sure he'll know
me
what
too.
it means.
So there's one of two possibilities. Either we're idiots or he's an idiot. Kidding. Thanks for listening.
All right, Layne, thank you so much for coming on, man. We really appreciate it. Where can our listeners find out more about you? I mean, I'm sure they already know, but you could. I guess this is your chance to shine right now. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the best place is my website, biolayne.com, BIOLAYNE.com. That's where all, anything that has to do with me is going to go up there. But the other places to find my stuff is Avatar Nutrition. That's our customized macronutrient calculator and adjustment as well. So it not only calculates your custom macros, but it also adjusts them based on how you progress. And another place to find my stuff is all the social media, obviously. So I'm on pretty much every social media platform as BioLayne, except for Facebook, which is facebook.com/Layne Norton. And then, I'm doing a lot more stuff with, I have a lot of articles on bodybuilding.com as well. But yeah, I think that those are probably the best places to find me, and really try to do a good job of putting them, as much content out as possible.
Yeah, but thank you so much for all you do to the industry. I mean, I know that you've opened my eyes to a lot of things. I know I can count on you for, anything that you say to me, pretty much. I always take it as, he does all his research, so I know that's a reliable source. It's so much better than some of the other places that I've been to. So thank you so much for all the information that you do and everything you do for the industry. I appreciate it as it helps me grow in my career in this as well. So thank you so much. Pete, I think it's your turn, bud.
All right, guys. Pete and Anthony with Dr. Layne Norton, New York Muscle Radio, and we're out.
Enjoyed this episode of New York Muscle Radio? Make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, New York Muscle Radio.